So I ended up writing um, a little under 500 words, about 465 words. And man, today was just one of those days where it was just a lot of thinking. It was just one of those ones where I have a new scene I was writing, and I was just trying to think of how I was going to do it. I knew what had to happen. I knew what needed to happen at the end and what the major points were. But how I was going to show this and how I was going to write it out, I went in basically with no idea. So today was just a lot of just thinking, like just sitting there thinking. I ended up having to finally like cut to a section here in the video where I finally got a little bit of typing in, because yeah, I mean a lot of this was just me just looking bored. Yeah, and it's one of those things where I feel like I put some effort in today, but when you look at such a low word count, like 465 words isn't a lot, and you look at something like that, over the course of a full day, you start to feel a little bit guilty. Like at least for me, I start feeling a little bit guilty. I'm on the sabbatical right now. It's not going to last forever. I've never had this much time to actually focus on my writing before. And here I am when I actually have, a full day basically to write, and I'm not even getting 500 words in the page, in a single day. I've talked a lot about before, obviously, the idea that I definitely do prefer, a low word count with words that are written well with a first draft that's a bit more polished than ones that are these messy drafts. So it's not so much the word count itself that bothers me. It's that when you spend a whole day basically just thinking, basically trying to come up with something, coming up with an idea, it's just one of those things where you look back and you feel like you haven't used your day properly, like you haven't you haven't used the time you had efficiently. And maybe the lesson in all that today is just kind of the reminder that hey, writing is a very long process. And I mean, more than any other activity, it seems like writing is a very, is a long process with not a whole lot of reward basically built into it. I'm thinking of other things like if you go to the gym, for example, right? You know, yeah, you're not going to see results overnight, but like in 6 months, you'll probably, you'll look in the mirror, and you'll see this change, right? You'll actually see it for yourself looking different, right? In 6 months. I mean, 6 months of writing, sometimes, I mean, you won't even notice basically any kind of progress. Really, yeah, it's like I'm trying to think of any other industry, man, where you don't get any sort of like really good benefit, any kind of like positive reinforcement at all for long periods of time. And man, I can't think of it. Even business, I'd imagine that like after I've been people work on novels for years, right? And these things don't necessarily get published. Like I feel like in business, at least after at least a year, you'd either like you get some sort of feedback, right? You can kind of auto adjust as it goes. If your product's not selling, you can make adjustments. If the service is not working, you can get the feedback and find out why. With writing, I mean, nobody sees your work for so long. It's like you're sort of doing this in the dark here and just hoping at the end that this is something people will read, or something that's of good quality, right? Even I mean, even critique partners, if you use them, they aren't going to see your work right away, right? I mean, I imagine people don't necessarily send over their first draft, so I mean, you're not even getting feedback on drafts based or any kind of reinforcement really until at least your first one is done, however long it takes to get that first draft done. So it's a very long process. It's a very solitary thing, and like there's no outside reinforcement at all. Like there's nothing really telling you if you're doing good or doing better. Like there's no way to really tell until you kind of step away, maybe come back to your work after a period of time. But I mean, so much of this is just a long, long period of just writing and just hoping that you're doing well, hoping that this thing is going in the right direction. And so here's to hoping that over the next few days, I'll I'll start making some more progress with the story. Like even though it was only about 500 words, I have a better idea of what the scene to look like in my mind. So that will allow me to sort of go into the next couple days with a very fresh, at least with a picture of what I want this thing to look like, this scene to look like. And I do think there's something to be said for, like, just taking a day to thinking over. I do find that after some of my worst writing sessions, the day afterwards, things sort of jump right back. I'm not sure if it's just something where your brain maybe overnight while you're sleeping kind of resets, and your ideas become more solidified, or maybe it's one of those things where something happens during your day that you don't you don't plan for, and you don't recognize that affects the way you think, and it affects your thought process, and it affects your writing. So whatever that is, I'm just hoping that hopefully a night basically to relax here, and a good night's sleep basically, and I'll come back tomorrow and I'll start hitting this thing a lot harder.